Alright, howdy everyone who's waiting in the chat. This is the Voice of Doom. Give us just a few moments. We have to do a system restart before kicking off here, so pour yourself a beer and we'll be right with you. Hey everyone, welcome to another perfect opening to another perfect podcast. I'm Pete Bickford, I'm your host. This is the ComicBase Livestream, and we're currently in the middle of a system reboot because mere moments before showtime, my computer announced that it was installing updates and it needed to reboot, and so I rebooted. That's cool, and then it decided, no, we need to reboot again for no apparent reason 2 seconds before broadcast. So, excuse my distractedness for just a few moments while we get set up. We will turn my attention full to the 87 windows that have just opened up, and let's get on with the live cast. All right, while I'm bouncing around here, I will talk distractedly while reminding everyone, please like and subscribe if you like this sort of insanity in your life. If it makes you feel better about your own chaotic day, that's a wonderful thing, and it also helps get the notes out to everyone else who's watching out for exactly this sort of entertainment in their lives. All right, so I've got my show notes up ready. Let's get ComicBase up. I'm almost there. This is so exciting and so close. Oh my goodness. Alright, let's, come on, quit all you other apps that want to upgrade and load and do things like this. If you guys are, have experienced this in your own lives about, when you reboot and 47 apps want to, start up at exactly the same time, that's, yeah, I feel it for you entirely. Okay, launching ComicBase, and we're just about ready to rock. I'm gonna pull up YouTube here, which hopefully is still streaming. And let's see. Yes, well, thank goodness for that one. All right, and I'm gonna look at the chats in live. All right, hello. Hey, everyone out there. Hey, Mike, Oro, Greg, Agent of Cap. Nice to see everyone else again. This is terrific. By the way, please post your comments to the chat. This is another Q&A live stream. I'm gonna hit as many of these as I possibly can. And darn it, this time I have questions from Ken from about 3 weeks ago that I promised this week I'm going to sync these questions and actually get them done. Because it's going to drive me crazy if we do nothing but Q&A live streams for the rest of the time. I'd like to have something with broader themes at some point. But we'll get there. Okay, and we're launching ComicBase. I think we're just about done with the other silliness. Oh, I want to load my graphics package so I can actually see what you guys are all saying. All right. Nearly there. Okay, H2R Graphics. Thank you to the lovely folks out in, was it Lomberg, Sweden, who put that together. That has been an absolute lifesaver. It lets us do all our fancy schmancy chroma keying and all sorts of stuff like that. And we'll take it from there. All right. Chroma is Chroma up? Chroma is up. All right, and now we turn on the keys. And keys are up, and I think we're about ready to do some business. Okay, guys. Hey, welcome. Oh, sorry, I have to put in the chat key. That's the one other thing, because otherwise I can't see what you guys are doing in the place where I can highlight your chats. And it turns out that's kind of important to this whole thing. Yeah. Aren't you guys so glad you guys were here precisely on time, and that I started the whole thing precisely on time? Punctuality is so important, even when you're not nearly ready. Alright, great. We have chat up again. Let's rock and roll. Okay, hi, I'm Pete Bickford, as we've mentioned. This is another Q&A live stream, and the whole purpose this time out is I'm going to answer questions from you folks, so please ask them, and we'll hit as many as we can. I have a few on deck. Oro got your question already. I'll be hitting that one, and you're always the first guy who jumps line on these things just because you're on time, so I appreciate that. But I'm going to hit your question first, but I'm going to go straight into Ken's question. And I also want to talk a little bit about from the chat sessions we've had this week with folks getting started with ComicBase, some things I wanted to pass on as a sort of a tip video video of things that I personally would suggest that you change up as soon as you launch ComicBase, or at least check over and make sure that they're to your liking, because it's funny because sometimes we'll deal with customers who've been around with it for a very long time, and I guess you get used to the program in a certain way, and when things change, maybe you don't look around and realize that certain things could be changed. And I'm finding customers as we're signing in and doing tech support with them, it's like, did you know that you could move that around or do things like that that would make your life much better? And it's inevitably news to them. So I want to show a few things that maybe we'd taken for granted. Maybe you all know this ahead of time, but if you didn't, maybe someone watching it later on can see some of the things you can do that will make things a little bit more friendly as you're getting started with ComicBase. All right, let's just do a quick. Oh, by the way, also I wanted to ask: is sound okay for everyone? Because one thing we were fighting right before broadcast was I was getting a little bit of a crackle in the monitor, and it was driving me crazy. I hope you're not getting it out there. All right, so got chat up here. All right, hey Mike. All right, looks like the keys are showing up. Sweet. All right, and oh, what? Agent of Camp Orlando pre-MegaCon. I forgot all about that. That's on this week. I'm excited by that. I'm not able to attend it myself, but damn it, next year I'm going down. Excellent. Greg says Hulk like smash button. Okay, cool. Let's see what else is going on here. Oro's on the ball. Stage manager. Yes. Okay. All right. So great stuff. All right. So Oro, let's hit your question first. Oro asks, is it possible to be able to get active URL links in any field in ComicBase? Notes, custom fields, tabs, etc. When you click the link in the default browser open, it goes to the URL. It's helpful to have the URL links to items on the GCD, other pages, entered in notes field, etc. Shows up nicely in the main title, splash page, etc. if the book is selected. The URL link appears as an active link. You can make things blue and underlined, but clicking URLs is not going to make it do anything. So, yeah, it's a really great feature suggestion. It's not something ComicBase does right now, but it's a really cool idea. Let's switch over to ComicBase and see what we're talking about. No. Oh man, seriously, did I lose my ComicBase monitor? This is gonna make me crazy. Okay, if I have to, I'm going to bounce it over to my main monitor, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. Give me just a second. Oh my goodness, all the fun we're having this week. Because demoing ComicBase without showing the ComicBase monitor is going to really blow. Alright, let's go to the displays control panel over here. Come on, baby. Oh my goodness. Talk to like yourselves for a moment while I monkey with settings. This is the best. Alright, so I'm going to my displays control panel. Actually, I want, yeah. Which, by the way, if you guys ever need to get there quickly, what is supposed to happen in Windows 10 is if you hit the Windows U key, it's supposed to take you to displays. That is great for doing things like changing the size of your monitors, but it doesn't do a darn thing for your ability to control which monitors are on which screens and so forth. Ironically, it says that my monitor is live. So, excuse me for one moment, guys. I'm going to unplug a monitor cable and be right back. Alright, hey, and boom! Something actually worked. Check this out, guys. We have an actual display on the computer display. Live troubleshooting, guys. Never try this at home. It sucks. Alright, so what Oro's talking about is the ability, and let's throw it to picture-in-picture here. He's talking about the ability to take notes or other things like that and turn them into clickable links. So if I were to go to, let's pick something like Batman and Robin, because we'll be talking about them in a moment. It'd be kind of cool. So if you'll notice over here that the links here for like the storylines, etc., they look like hyperlinks because they are. Basically, what these are doing, if I click on them, is it will kick off a ComicBase search for Batman and Robin, or Domino Effect, etc. in the storylines. If I click on this, it'll look for a writer search by Grant Morrison. If I click on that, it'll look for artist Frank Whiteley, etc. So these are all built-in ComicBase searches, and so what we're doing is we're styling them as hyperlinks because they do hyperlinky stuff. What they don't do is they don't take you to an outside website, which is an interesting idea. So if I'm following, what would be kind of cool is if I had in ComicBase, let's say I'd used one of my custom fields, and I had, say, made one of these be my external link field, that if I could say something like https:// Grand Comic Database or comicbook.com or something else, let that link appear somehow, in there and click on it. It's an interesting problem. So there's a couple of if you guys know hypertext, there's a couple of interesting wrinkles with this. So the format of a link in hypertext is you have to type something like A, which is an anchor link. Whoever designed the HTML protocol, I guess those were called anchors once upon a time. But anyway, you say something like href is equal to let's just say www.google.com, right? All right. You then close the brackets and you'd say something like Google link. Right, and then you'd say \. That's what an actual hypertext link, which would say Google link, and which when you clicked on it would take you to Google. That's what that would actually look like. One problem you've got with hypertext links is you could just put in the part where you say like https://google.com. And a lot of times in like a Word document or mail or something like that, it knows enough to maybe make it clickable and take you to where it's going. One thing it certainly doesn't know how to do is to give you any kind of info on what that link does or takes you to. And it's hard to know without getting into that kind of whole syntax where you actually have an encapsulated name for your tag or as well as a destination for the tag. It's hard to know how you would support that. It's a really interesting idea, though. I mean, I thank you for the idea. I don't know exactly what can be done with it just at the moment, but I do appreciate you giving me the look in for it, because I can see doing interesting things. I think we need to make it open to anyone using the program, so they insert links to themselves on things, or maybe we could adopt some kind of convention where if you wrapped a notes field in hypertext, that it would appear as external hypertext. I don't know. I'd like to think of something that would be understandable by regular users and not completely cryptic. But it's hard to know how to do it, because I mean, fundamentally, I mean, ComicBase isn't really a hypertext authoring program, and it's stupidly weird how difficult just even dumb things like make a link are when you want to do things like give them labels. So yeah, thank you for the suggestion, but I'm going to keep in the suggestions file for now. There's no way for you to do it yourself right now. You certainly could put the link into a custom field and then copy and paste it into your browser at will. I mean, that's certainly something that's within your power. And maybe we could add some kind of auto launch feature in ComicBase where if a link appears with an HTTPS or an HTTP in front of it, that we detect that and more or less make it clickable. This more or less the Microsoft Word solution. Maybe that's the best we can be doing at that point. But yeah, interesting thought. Thanks for that one. Yeah, Greg says Pete's producer must have gone on vacation this week. Yeah, no, he didn't. Chair stream. All right, let's see here. Okay, let's see. Oh, yeah, Agent DeCap. So we're going to be talking about Tim Drake. Yeah, so let me pull up my show notes on that one, because it is the comic news of the day. So if you guys want to know like what the Pete Talking Points memo looks like when I'm getting ready to do stuff, it looks a bit like. Let me see. Why am I getting? Let me see, I need to close up. I've got too many windows open, so give me just a second to close up a little bit of foo so I don't go nuts. Magnifier, goodbye. Okay, you over there. Oh, I see what's. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So, let's see if this will pop up onto the program feature when I go there. Wow, I'm getting the weirdest double monitoring stuff going on. So basically, I'm looking at a fourth video. They call it confidence monitor. It's supposed to more or less show me what I'm doing, and I'm seeing something that's very different than I can explain using just regular displays. It's kind of like I'm seeing the windows behind other windows, but only on one monitor. It's very strange. Let me go ahead and pop that to. Oh, you know, I think I know what's happening. I think I know what's happening. I think my chroma, when I pulled the monitor, I think my chroma walked over to another monitor. So I'm just going to shut that down for a second, and that's exactly what happened. Ha 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 ha. All right, so if you guys have ever heard of this such a thing, so you guys have probably heard of green screens. The generalized form of a green screen is called a chroma key. It's basically you pick a color, and these days people will typically go for green. In the old days it was blue, but the problem is a lot of people have blue eyes, and so if you made this blue your color for what the chroma key basically is, it's the color you're going to drop out. If you see that color, you're going to pull it out of the video image, and you're going to replace it with whatever you want as a graphic behind it. So what would happen in the old days is, newscasters would, they used to have blue screens. There was a particularly weird colored blue, and so anytime anyone was stupid enough to wear a blue suit on set or whatever else, suddenly you'd see the weather in Poughkeepsie going through their suit, or something like that on the weather map. And the really strange one is every once in a while you got someone with like David Bowie blue eyes, and they'd be having some kind of computer graphic behind them or whatever else, and if they were using a blue screen for that effect, his eyes would be reflecting. Actually, and David Bowie was very strange. He had dichromatic eyes. He was one eye, one color. I think one eye was blue, one was green. But you'd get one of his eyes would suddenly have like a weird alien effect in it, which you got to wonder if they did it just on purpose. Anyway, so. What was happening to me just now is when I had to pull the monitor cable, my monitors helpfully adjusted, and they moved where my chroma key was from monitor number 3 to monitor number 2. Then it was keying out visibly all the code windows and things like that I typically am hiding on. So I'm looking through that, but I'm looking at the program monitor and I'm not seeing them, and it would just drive me nuts. This is easily the most distracted show we've ever had. All right. What the heck are we talking about? Substack. All right, so Batman and Robin. So so my show notes, which I was showing you right over here, they look like this. It's the stuff I meant to talk about. Basically says, okay, post and subscribe, 750K sales crazy, still storing pics, etc. Industry news. Well, Robin is going by. Terrific. Batman Urban Legends number 6. Honestly, that's about all I got to say about that. It's, Marvel did their Marvel Pride thing. DC did DC Pride thing. June is now officially Pride Month, because you can't just have a weekend or a parade or a day or whatever else. No, now it's a month, and I'm sure there's... And I heard as soon as, someone told me that was Pride Month, I heard there's some other kind of Pride, that's in another kind of month. And I'm like, guys, enough. Just enough. I'm so done with all your corporate foo. I don't want corporate positioning on anything at this point. At this point, I don't want even colored coffee cups at Christmas. I'm just like, people, sell your products, sell them based on whatever qualities they have. Enough with the effing politics. But yes, in the ongoing effort to piss on anything fans love in the name of virtue signaling, they are sending Timothy Drake, who's dated half the DC universe, all women, in his lifetime, has suddenly discovered that he's really curious about guys. If you guys care, that will be found in Batman Urban Legends number 6. Let's see if it's out yet. I get my comics a little bit behind the scenes, because they come into the main office first and then they get sent around to me later on. So we must have seen it. We've got a cover for it. It's there. It's a thing. As of last week, it was still $8. So gee, guys, get it while you can. There's apparently a variant cover by Jay Anacleto, should you care. I expect based on history, this thing will momentarily spike like crazy in in the speculator back issue market, etc. If it doesn't, then it would indicate that we are well and truly done with this nonsense, because that would mean that everyone's just really, really bored with the whole concept of, oh look, it's this character that you've known and loved, but now they are blah. It's like, remember, the early exploitation days where they merely made Punisher black for an episode or two. Yeah, that was an actual thing. They made he had some kind of weird skin dyeing disguise thing in order to escape the mob or some kind of thing. It was somewhere around Punisher 60. Might have been Warzone. Don't really remember right now. It was kind of awful. There was Alpha Flight number 106, if memory serves, where they made a hero that exactly 0 people in the Marvel Universe cared about. He always looked like an ice skater anyway, but yes, they made... here we are. They made North Star, who has ice powers. He's from Canada. They made him gay. Okay, yeah, that's a thing. It's for a while it was really insanely interesting to somebody. It's apparently up to $17, so hey, it held its value. It's been kind of up and downy, if I recall, over time as far as where the value's gone long term. It was back in '92 that they did this. I guess it's having a little bit of a resurgence. It's back up to $17. You're not going to get rich with your Alpha Flight number 106s, but hey, maybe you're Tim Drake turning by, maybe that'll be a thing. I honestly, guys, I'm just so annoyed at this stuff just as lazy story writing. I don't believe for a second that there's anything true or organic about it. It's just like when you race swap every character. When you make the new Tinkerbell is really a black fairy, or the real was it Cinderella is now black, or whatever else, or Nick Fury will be a gay transsexual woman next time, if it hasn't already happened. I mean, I don't even know if I'm joking at this point, but it's for me, it's like, look, I'm a fan. I like the stories, and I have nothing against the idea where if the best way you can, the best character you can get to cast the whole, to fill the role is not the race or gender I expect, as long as it doesn't betray the character, I don't care. I thought Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, I thought that was great casting. I mean, I don't think I ever met anyone who had a problem with that one. But what it gets really, really tiresome is when you're like, well, I don't know. We haven't really done anything with this character for a while. We're bored. What do we do? I know. We will race/gender swap it. And it's, of course, always done, to make straight characters gay, to make white characters non-white, to make, guys be girls, etc. It's never done the other way. And honestly, it's just the laziest of all possible storytelling. So I'm bored. Guys, stop. Please. But anyway, in the meantime, if somewhere in that sea of comic books behind me, because I've been getting buried under comic book submissions from the editorial lately, and by the way, there's kind of an international run on comic bags. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's really, really hard to get bags and boards right now. We've been on back order ourselves for 4.5 months, and I'm at the point now where I'm literally running around town. We usually order these things by the case. I'm down to the point where I'm running around town trying to scrounge individual 100 count bags of comics from people just to deal with editorial submissions. So it's weird out there now. But anyway, if somewhere in there, if there's a copy of Batman Urban Legends number 6, and if it gets index inventory to my collection before it gets jumped up in the price, hey, it's on Atomic Avenue, https atomicavenue.com/store/P Bickford. Maybe someone catches a deal with my copy. I'll happily sell it to you at cover price, or whatever it got, because, hey, I really don't care. So anyway, that's about it. Okay, moving on. I think that's way too much time to spend on something that's just a BS move anyway. All right. I'm sorry. Agent of Camp corrects me. North Star had flying and speed powers. I apologize for that. I think it was the ice kind of. Yeah, it was like I think of his costume, and I always think of him looking like Kishin, but maybe that's just me. Let's see here. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Yes, Greg says, the reason it's hard for me to get bags is because I'm bagging and reboarding my collection. So reorganizing and rebagging my collection, so blame me and my fortress of comics. All right, Greg, it's you. You're the guy. All right, so let's move on. All right, so back to the show notes, back to the plan, such as it was. All right, so I want to talk about things that I would change when you first get ComicBase, which hopefully will help you a little bit as you're going forward and just getting the thing set up. So let's go back over to our beloved Alpha Flight here. So you launch ComicBase 2020. And you guys don't have an admin menu. That's just in my copy. Ignore that for now. It's just yet another little production thing. But the very first thing a lot of people do is they'll look at the whole thing, and the grid will not be exactly what they want. It shows a bunch of stuff by default, which maybe it's interesting to you, maybe it isn't. Maybe the sizes need to be moved around a little bit. Maybe you like having your notes ahead of other things and so forth. What I would do the very first thing after I boot the whole thing up and I look at my comic book is I would come up here into the setup menu. I'd look at columns to view, and I would go down for the different types of comic books, and I would move these columns around. I would uncheck anything that's not deeply interesting to me, because I can basically say I want to see or not see any of these fields. Like if I don't browse over Comic Inker ever, heck, take it out. It's not, anything that's on the screen that you're not using is really hurting you. At best, it's distracting. But at worst, it's just it's just pain in the butt. Maybe I don't care about colorists that much, etc. Now, as it turns out, I actually do because I fill in this data. But if you don't, go ahead and uncheck it. And honestly, at the same time, you may have custom fields down here that you really care about. We assigned custom field 1 as box. You might want to check that and make that visible. Maybe you care about Diamond Street dates. Maybe you're a comic store, so forth. So go ahead and move those things into a place where they're more accessible to you. And once you've got them checked as to whether you want to see them or not, you also can click on them and move the items up or down in the list, and it'll reorder where they appear on things. So like say I want to put my grading notes way up here, let's say you're right ahead of the storylines, and so that way I can easily look at say, okay, this is the copy of X-Men 106 that has light fading at the upper right hand corner, whatever the thing is, but maybe that's a more convenient way for you to go. Then finally, also remember that you can go and just drag these dividers in between and resize how big these each field is. So I was looking at one guy earlier on who somehow had all his fields super shrunk up, and so everything was scrolling on him, and it was just kind of awful. By all means, make those fields as wide as makes any kind of sense to you. Also, while you're at it, have a look down here at this grid size. So the height of these ones is set really by the height of the picture. So go ahead and set under View your grid cover icon size. The standard is 48, but depending on your monitor, if you've got scaling or magnification going on, hey, go ahead and make it bigger if you want. Make it smaller. But do whatever makes sense to you. And by the way, when you do that, you'll notice it takes a second. That generates all the new thumbnails at the new size again. You can also, if you really like a tight list, you can shrink it up entirely or make it very small. Let's kick it down to say 24. The problem with doing that, though, and you'll see this in a second, is that when I make my icons really small, I could see more rows on the screen at the same time, but I'm also cutting up the height of these other rows. Now, I can hover the mouse over it to see more, but that's not the most convenient thing in the world. So, I mean, if you find that you're needing to make all your fields this big just to be able to see the things you want in them, give yourself a break and make the grid cover icon size, make it something a little bit more normal so you can see a decent amount of information as you go. So that's number one thing I would do. Number two thing I would do is I'd look under here under View, and I would set the different views the way I like them. So for instance, when you first get ComicBase, I believe it's set to default to the grid view for comics and magazines and the album view for books. The album view, if you guys don't remember, it looks a little something like this. And give me a second as it rebuilds a few hundred thumbnails, which is kind of cool if you're trying to fill in your runs or something, because you can pretty easily see what are the ones that you're missing and you've got and so forth. That's that's kind of nifty. But pick the one that you gel the best with. You can see more information in the grid view. It's easier to change information very quickly in the grid view, but a lot of people like a more visual view. But choose the one that makes sense to you. Another thing you can do is if you look at this line between the top part and the bottom part, go ahead and grab this and move it up or down, however you like, to see as much or as little information as you want, and to make that cover icon, the cover area at the top, to make it a reasonable size for you. Now, there's no limit. There's a limit. You can't make it infinitely small. I think the smallest you can make it is about there, and the most you can make it, I guess, is there. But great, you got a huge picture of Alpha Flight #1, but I got no room to see anything after that. So pick a happy medium for your monitor, wherever you are and what you're doing. But do know that you can move that. And the one other limit I would say watch out for, and I'm going to switch this back to the grid view just for a second, is there is a feature a lot of people like, that when you click on an issue, you can say include the value graph, so you can see how it's done over time. This graph takes a decent amount of space. And so, we let you move the top here up so far that we don't have any more room to show it. But all that means is that, you kind of gave up the graph in order to get more grid space. In order to get it back, you have two choices. One is you can move this grid part down again and then say turn on the include value graph, or just say include value graph and it'll move this down to the minimum it needs in order to show both the graph and the plus and minus issues below it. So that would be on the main screen. That would be the main things I would do. And then finally, the thing I would probably tell everyone to do when you first get started is, well, all right, penultimately. Finally is a great thing to say in a matter of speaking, but it's my second to last point, I guess is what I mean to say, because I thought of another point the second I just said that. Second to last thing I would do is I would look up, and if I use different gradings than the standard Overstreet type gradings, I would go up under Setup, I would go to Grading, and I would tick off in grading sets, I would tick off the types of grades that I personally use. So for instance, I personally do not use CGC restored grades. I could take those out and get them out of the way, but maybe I do use PGX, right? So if I highlight those guys, or if I check or uncheck different ones, what it will do then is it will clean up my lists of when it shows me the different gradings, and it will only show me the grades that are valid for my collection. Now, if for some reason I uncheck CGC, but I still had some CGC books in my collection, you're still going to see that particular grade of CGC left in the list, but it'll get rid of all the others. So it'll unclutter your gradings. But some people will come to me and say, well, hey, I do a lot with restored books, I do a lot with that thing. How do I add those grades? And so instead of adding it yourself, just go up here under Setup, go to Grading Setup, Grading Sets, and click to add in whatever grades you use a lot. And then those things will just automatically appear in your list. You'll be able to choose them from the drop downs right here. Okay? And now the final thing I would do, oh darn it, I did it again, because I thought of one more. Sorry guys. The second to last thing, I feel like there's a Spanish Inquisition joke in here coming up, is I'd go up under here to Setup, I'd go to Preferences. Alright, I would have a look and make sure I like the defaults on the program here. There aren't a ton of defaults. We very much try with preferences either to make it so it just simply remembers the last thing you did, or if that's not a reasonable option, to just give you a limited list of choices, or at least put the choice next to the function as much as possible. But for the general program behavior, you find it right here. I think the default is check for updates every time you open the program. I think the default is don't check for interim updates. We've beat this one to death in previous ones. If you really like seeing the very latest stuff, go ahead and check that off, but you don't need to. If you don't have it checked, you'll get the important updates, about once a quarter when we have stuff like that. If you like seeing every last thing that we've ever done, go ahead and check it, and it'll check every time, and tell you what's going on as far as new things with the program. If you sell or if you use the mobile app to add purchases, I would absolutely make sure that you, every time the program is launched, that you check for your new sales and check for new purchases, just to keep your inventory straight. And then the other thing, and this is a new recommendation, and it's probably, if you have an older version of ComicBase, it's probably set a different way. I would actually go and say, optimize automatically when exiting, but the old version is it would say when the unused space is greater than 10%, which was a default from the old ComicBase database technology we used to use in ComicBase 2017 and earlier. I would actually say these days switch this to never. The reason is because it doesn't help a lot with the modern database that we've got here. It was really crucial with the old one. With the new database technology we're on, SQLite, doesn't help that much. And also, if we set up Sidekick, it'll do it for you anyway. So I would save yourself a few seconds when you exit the program. Just switch that to never. Because what that does is when you just get out of ComicBase, you just, when you exit, it just saves a backup if you've got it set that way and just gets out. Speaking of backups, I would absolutely leave the default setting of automatically backup your database. If you want to save your database backups to a different hard drive, I admire that choice. I think it's a great idea because that way if one hard drive goes, you've always got another copy on another hard drive. Whether you compress the backups to save space, personal choice, doesn't make a lot of difference on a modern system, but if you want to trade a little bit of time exiting for a few hundred megs per backup of space, it's not a bad way to go. And then the rest of it, absolutely personal, to you. Have a look at those options and set them as you like. And then, all right, and this really is the last thing I would tell someone setting up the program. Is go ahead and launch Sidekick. You're going to find him down here under the start, right down here. On most of your guys' computers, he's going to be hiding somewhere amongst these, they're called the notification area icons. For me, because I use him a lot, I promoted him. I actually set the notifications so that he's always visible, so he appears right down here. But he's a little superhero looking guy. Go ahead and click on him. Open him to show the interface. And now, also, by the way, note that he's not going to do a lot of his stuff while ComicBase is running. So Sidekick is your little assistant there to do all the boring stuff when you're not using ComicBase. And so the model on him is very much the elf, the shoemaker and the elves. He's there to run in the middle of the night and do all the stuff that's really a kind of a chore. So you wake up in the morning and he's done all the the scut work for you. So that's what his job is. So that's why he runs when ComicBase isn't running. Also because he can't do a lot of stuff if you've got the database open. So things like keeping your database up to date with the latest contents, checking for sales and purchases, if you sell on Atomic Avenue, posting your items for sale, saving your backups to the cloud. That also syncs it up to the mobile application. And we talked about it. It's no longer necessary to optimize your database from within the program because you can have him do it automatically. And by the way, he'll do it automatically just whenever you save to the cloud. So don't go too nuts on that option these days, I would say. But do set up in Sidekick. The very first time you run it, it's going to say, hey man, I need a database to work with. At least I got to have one. In which case, when you go through here, hit plus, so add a database for him to work with, and the one you're going to use for most of you is going to be inside your ComicBase databases folder, which is C, users, your name, documents, human computing, ComicBase databases, and it'll be, for most of you, it's called ComicBase database. Maybe it's called Jim's Comics or whatever you've called it, but whatever your database you're working with, add it as the database you're working with. Now, I'm keeping 4 different databases up to date at once, but I'm kind of a special case. Just, you don't need to be like me. But add him here, and then that becomes a database that's kind of like under management. So that Sidekick will typically, when he goes, will run in the middle of the night. He runs on the schedule right over here, which is the second tab, and I've got him right now starting at Wednesdays at 6:02 p.m. He's going to check for updates every day and save to cloud and compact databases. You can set this for 3 a.m. whatever you like, but the model basically is set that up, and then he'll just take care of making sure you're updated, you're protected, your mobile stuff gets synced up, your purchases get pulled down, all that stuff there. And all you got to do is just make sure when you exit ComicBase for the day, file exit, close ComicBase, leave Sidekick running. He'll just be down here in the bottom minding his own business, and then in my case at 6:02 p.m. he's going to check and see if there's a new update, download it, take it from there, and so forth. It saves you a lot of hassle. So I would definitely take the moment to set him up and take it from there. All right, so that is all my tips on that. Let's get back to questions. All right, so back to the chat here. Clobber that like. Thank you very much. All right, so all right, let's see. Okay, wow, sorry, I have so much scrolling to do. Substack. Let's see here. G&T, just about the perfect summer cocktail. Man, I cannot help but agree. I'm going to have lots more to say about cocktails next week. Anyway, let's see. Okay, what you could do is black 4 million. So let's talk about backing boards here. Okay, Oro says, what are the advantages, possible clever uses for the view setting, grouping / display as a single list, please? Possible list only titles in stock. Sure, let's go back over to that one. Or I am going to get to the Ken's questions by the end of this one. Is there a way to set a time marker for myself? I should absolutely do that. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Okay, yes, in 5 minutes, I'm getting to Ken's questions. Damn it. All right, so let's go back to the view settings. All right, so under view here, you might have noticed that there's also this grouping thing. All right, now what this kind of works for well, and there's also items to show. Let's talk about both these. All right, I could, should I want to, display all my titles as one big single list. Now for comics, yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I could show them just in one big go. You know, just sort of like, okay, here's all my Alpha Flights, here's all my warehouse, just in one big, huge, humongous scrolling thing. That's not where that kind of comes to its own is when we switch into something like books, where it's probably reasonably likely you don't have a ton of them. So if I go under here and I say View, Grouping, Display as a single list. And then it's going to give me one big group here, and even then, okay, which if you look down here, so now here's every single book in the database listed like this. And you could list these in an album view if you like, but instead of ever scrolling by title, you'll notice when we're in this view, there's no backward and forward by title. It's just going to show you every single thing you've got. Now, if you're going to do this, I would definitely suggest do it in combination with items to show, owned items, which is to say, people have been asking for the longest time, and I'm not sure if I'm a believer in this feature. I'll just put it out there. But people asking for the longest time, how come I can't just see a big list of just the stuff I've got? I mean, you've got 1 million titles in this database. I just want to see my stuff. Well, friends, this is a way to see your stuff. So if I go out, and I'm going to be foolish here for a moment, I'm going to go to comic books. I have some 56,000 comic books, and if I go and I say items to show, owned items, so that's just, now it's just my comic books. So for Alpha Flight, the list got much smaller just now, but now if I'm going to say grouping, don't display it title by title, just give me one big old list. All right, now it's going to show me 5,000 issues at a time, because that's what my maximum grid settings were. It's going to show me every single comic book I own in one big list. You know, as you can see, it took a while to draw that list to start with. But yeah, so this is, you know, this is everything in my collection, right? Should I ever have need in my life for one huge list of every comic I've got, well, that'll do it. I could highlight this one, I could report it, I could do all those things. I mean, realistically though, as soon as you've got, in my experience, more than about 1,000 or, you know, even several hundred comic books, it's too much. It's too much for one list. It's more than I want to see. So what you know, we definitely do by default, certainly, is we display title by title. And the items that we show are all the items. Now, why do I show all items and not just, you know, items in stock? Why is that not my preferred view? Because mostly what I'm doing when I'm, you know, messing around in ComicBase is I'm adding stuff, or I'm getting rid of stuff from my collection. So I always want to see the things I don't have yet, because if I'm going to say, you know, hey, someone just, you know, sold me a copy of Alpha Flight number 2, I want to add it to my collection, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to highlight that row, you know, and maybe put a 1 in there, you know, maybe I bought it in very fine condition, whatever the thing is. But I'm going to be adding that to my collection as I go. So I need to have seen that number 2 was even an option before. So if I had my view set to only show items that were already in my collection first, then I'd have to toggle it out to show all the items of Alpha Flight in order to even see it, and so forth. Now, again, if I want to just sort of browse around and get a condensed sense of, you know, which Alpha Flight ones I've got, then that's not a bad way to go. But I wouldn't say, I'd be lying to you if I said that this is the way I use the program. We certainly have people ask for it, so we want to accommodate that, but that's what we do there. Okay, now let's go here. Okay, Ed says, every time I make the cover icon size smaller, the size defaults back to 128 standard size when I relaunch ComicBase. The way to prevent this from happening. I do not have a way. Ed, follow up with me by support on that one. This is not a function that I have seen. This is not a function that I've seen happen in the program. So maybe you've got something local going on your machine, or maybe there's a version issue. But no, it should be remembering whatever size you set. One thing, do remember though that the sizes are individual to each of the different areas. So in other words, I can have my like my grid over here. I can set, I can have my comic, one set to 32. I could have my book set to 128. I could have all sorts of different sizes for the different collectibles. So make sure you're checking the same collectible that you set the size on. It's you don't set one size for all collectibles at once. They're all individual. So if you're still in trouble, please reach out via support@comicbase.com. We'll help you out. All right, I'm going to get now to Ken's question, because damn it, I'm not going to let this one set one more minute. All right, Ken B wrote. All right, let's see here. I was looking for a way to generate a temporary list of comics. List is similar to the items that are displayed after you add comics to the inventory. What he does is he prints identification labels for every comic that he adds to the database, but he was looking for a way to scan those labels into a temporary list that you could use to make quick changes, quick reports, etc. So he, for instance, he wanted to use that as a way to mark that he'd sent off the books to be graded. He wanted to mark that he needs to rebag and board them, etc. So there's a couple of interesting things going on here. So what he's talking about is when I say add comics by inventory, and I go and I beep in, some random comic. All right. Okay, so one thing you guys might have noticed when you add by inventory is there's an option down here at the bottom that says display items after saving. Now I also like that there's also print divider labels for new titles. That is probably my favorite feature of ComicBase 2020. Anyway, so all right, it just added the stuff in there, and here it is printing the divider label for me. I'll go ahead and do that because, yes, after this show, I'm going to get back to bagging and boarding because you can never have enough of that. All right, but let's say he'd had a list of 20 different books that he'd just added. What Ken would want to do is he'd want to do other things to this. Now, I talked to Ken a bit on this one, and the first thing I mentioned was, well, once you've got this list available to you here, typically what you would do to do a lot of things is you would highlight the items in it and then do a quick change. So I believe that's edit and then quick change. My fingers always remember it's Control G. So let's say I wanted to say all those comics were in box number, and this is a custom field that I've defined as box number. I set my custom field 1 to be box, and so I want to say, okay, all these books are now in box 23. If I say make changes, then they're all in box 23 now. And if I thought ahead of time and made box number visible, then you'd see that it really did it. Another thing you'd want to do is you want to say, I want to go and print ID labels for them. Well, one thing we do a lot around here is we take any old list, especially the ones that come after we've added in comic books. We Control A, highlights all, and then we right click and, or if we remember, F6 will automatically print ID labels for everything in that list. So typically around here, the workflow is scan a bunch of comic books in, that just came in to inventory, print off any new divider labels for them, then highlight the ones that we just added, and print ID labels for them. Because as you guys probably heard me say 100 times, nothing in our place gets put away unless it has an ID label on it these days. That ID Dick's been in place for about 10 years now, and it has saved us so much work on the filing side. It's not even funny. But all you got to do is with any list, including the ones that you did right after you enter comic books, you can just click on the far left to select, or hit Control A, highlight, and then do the thing you want to do. Print ID labels, mark them. You could set a quick change for, say I have a custom field or a custom checkbox that says to be graded. I could, quick change and set that to be graded to be true. So then Ken had one other follow-up question, which was really interesting. It's like, well, okay, I want to beep in a bunch of books, but they're already in my inventory. I don't have a way of I don't have a way of, what's his name? Excuse me a second, guys. As part of our reset here, one thing I did not get a chance to do was shut down the phone forward. So, yes, we are having the most awesome production from this one. All right, there we go. So, less foo. So if you wanted just, let's say you had a stack of comic books sitting in front of you and you wanted to start doing quick changey type things with them, but you didn't want to add them to your inventory, but you wanted to be able to sort of aggregate them into a list, how would you do it? And that's actually where this question got really interesting, because it's kind of a hack. There is no program there is no function in the program that lets me take 4 or 5 comic books. Let me throw myself into the frame here so you can see what I'm doing. There is no function in the program that lets me take 4 or 5 comic books, bleep them all in, and then start doing quick changey things to those 4 or 5 at once. But you can, certainly you can do it one by one. If you want to do that sort of thing, just pick any comic book, beep it, it'll take you to that comic book in the database, Control G, quick change, blah blah blah. Or if that's too tedious to you, you could abuse the add by inventory a little bit. And one way you could do is you could go Control I, which is add by inventory. Beep in a bunch of books. I'm just gonna beep in a couple here, like that. And I think what I was thinking originally for him is that you could go ahead and just let these roll, display them, but then as part of one of the things you quick change afterwards, you could quick change and set them back to undo the quantity add, in other words. So if I add these right now, because I've already added runes, I'm going to wind up with 2 copies of rune, right? But one thing I could do, if I hit save now and let it pull up the list. Alright, so you'll notice over down here I've got 2 copies under runes. I can also go ahead and quick change and set quantity in stock here back to 1, undoing the quick change that gave me this list. But then, because I've now got everything in one big, happy, convenient list, now I could also do my my bit where I mark them as to be graded. I could do labels for them. I could do whatever I want. So that's it's a little hacky, but that does actually work. Now, one thing, and I'm going to try here. I've literally never tried this. I do not know that it would work, but let's find out, shall we? Is what if I went beeped in a couple books. Alright, except now, before adding them, I go over here, and I say the quantity I want to add. Can I do that? Yeah, the quantity I want to add is 0. If I do that now, and I hit save, will it even pull up the list? I wrote the program, and I couldn't tell you. Let's find out. It does. So there you go. So there, in that case, so we've kind of discovered together a new feature of the program. So yes, if you do want to just do aggregate operations on any particular list of books, go ahead and say add by inventory, bleep them all in, but then before you hit go down the list and start typing zeros down there for the quantity to add. It won't affect your quantities, but it'll still pull up the list in the end. So that's a thing. So anyway, thank you, Ken, for asking that one. That was a weird little path, and after, geez, I think about a month, I think I've finally been able to answer that one on the air. So thank you for waiting on that one, and glad we could help. All right, let's get back to it. Turning back on the keys. All right, let's check the chat one last time. I think we're almost out of time here. No, actually, we got a couple minutes left. Let's see what we got going on. Agent Cam says, Pete, stop saying he with sidekick. They identify as non-binary. Yeah, I don't think sidekick gave me his pronouns or zer pronouns. I don't know. I'll have to set up a Zoom call with him and find out what the deal is. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've misgendered him or something, but honestly, we created the dude. It's, as far as we're concerned, he's a little sidekick dude. I feel like, the shoulders he's got, right on there. You guys probably saw the bit where they took, what was it, Captain Britain from Marvel, and they basically, took a male figure, pasted a girl head on the top of these massively broad shoulders. It's like, yeah, physiques just don't kind of work that way. It's just, just bad anatomy and bad drawings everywhere. But anyway, we more or less modeled Sidekick very much on. We have our So the origin of Sidekick, for that matter, the origin of the Human Computing logo is, so the Human Computing logo was originally taken off of the work of the 1972 Olympics. Very influenced by that when I was getting started in human interface. Just to, I love the economy of using essentially the rounded stick figures to represent all the sports. I thought that was just a breakthrough in design. So when it was time to found my own company, I thought, well, okay, Human Computing, that's the name we're sticking with. Well, okay, human, what do we got? And so stick figure for a human, and we had the old Macintosh click cursor, which we purposely pixelated the hell out of in juxtaposition as if you're clicking on the guy. So that was Human Computing. That's where that logo came from. Human Computing started out as an interface consultancy, and we did that for a number of years before we launched a product called ComicBase. I thought, well, okay, I'm still got that. I love the abstract of the human in the iconography of the whole thing. So, or the oh gosh, sorry. I will think of the word. I will think of the word I'm trying to think of in a minute. The semiotics of the whole thing. Yes, so and yes, Scott McCloud once accused me of being a semiotician. It's like, you take that back, you. No, and I realized it was kind of a compliment. Anyway, so. What we want to do when we want to come up with the idea of kind of a generic-y superhero product from Human Computing, or at least a hero for our product, is we took really our guy, our Human Computing guy. We gave him essentially Batman's cape, at least we're Batman's or Superman's. With the animation we used in the old thing was stolen. We had an animator who, frame by frame, came up with a series of rotating images, which let his cape ripple out in the background. And he basically said, yeah, I just watched about 100 episodes of Batman the Animated Series till I got the cape rippling down right. So, and that's where that came from. But so that's where the ComicBase guy came from. The flying guy we see in the logo. So he came from that. He occasionally see in other poses, doing his Superman pose on the mountain or, whatever else. But when it came time for him to get a little hero super, sidekick, he thought, well, okay, all right, well, we want Kid Superman or Kid Batman. Well, that kind of leaves us in Robin territory. So you figure, okay, how do you tell us the kid version? Well, he's got to look, those cool old masks, with the eyes cut out of it. He's got his cape's got to be a different color, and he's shorter. And that's it. That's all as far as the thinking went. So that's where the design of Sidekick came from. So I'm going to say with some confidence, he's a dude. It's really a he. Unlike, I don't know what he does at night when he takes off the cape. It's not my business. So I don't know what he gets up to in the bedroom, but I just care that he updates my database. So that's as far as I care about his work activities. All right. Reminders for everyone. Greg wants to remind everyone there is a Atomic Avenue forum fully open, and please post stuff for that as well as for the ComicBase message boards. And that is it. Okay, I think we got it. Good grief, the chat is so crazed today. Let's see. And Steve also points out, can you just add the mark checkbox in the add by barcode as a way to find them after they are checked? That is really interesting. I like that idea. So I think if I'm following Steve's suggestion, the way he's thinking is if you go under add by barcode, we could say, in addition to display items after saving, print viable things, if we just say mark after saving, that would be a really nice way of marking them as you go. But the problem is, I think the only trick on that one is to defeat so add by barcode, and it's got sort of a counterpoint in the POS terminal, where this one rolls in quantity into your database. The POS terminal, which is for selling, that one rolls quantities out of your database. Because the idea that whatever you scanned here has got a purpose and it's meant to go, be decremented. I think what we kind of want, and maybe there's just maybe I just add a keyboard hack or something like that. The idea of just basically being a neutral, group a bunch of stuff, scan a bunch of stuff and do something with it, but not necessarily add anything. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's a function if I come up with it, or maybe we just make it easier to do what I did, where once you've scanned a bunch of books, what I had to do when I went there, let me put my cursor in the right place. if I just wanted to group the books and then do stuff with them, you know, I guess you could have a function which is just sort of like, you know, assemble group by barcode, or whatever the thing would be. Or maybe just make it so that, you know, you could just highlight down this line with a quantity, punch a 0 or something on the keyboard, and it just punches the 0 into the quantity that you're adding. We could hack that pretty easily. You know, just to make it so it's, you know, it's like one of these tips that the kids in the know, you know, could use to assemble groups. But I'm not sure how well I could sell that as a feature. I got to think on that one some. But I like that there's possibilities that even I didn't know on the whole thing. All right, guys. I think that's about it for now. This was easily one of the more chaotic live streams, but, you know, thank you for watching. I can't promise much more for the next one. I have stuff going on in life that I will tell you about next time. It's kind of awesome, exciting stuff, but I want to keep it a surprise until then. In the meantime, thank you. You guys might know that we've had some staff out last couple days this week due to, you know, some, you know, personal family problem. You know, I mean, just, you know, deaths in the family, really. So it's been a lot of load on the rest of us, but we're soldiering on as best we can. Things should be back to normal by tomorrow, and we should have the update out then. In the meantime, thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.